Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope you all are doing great. Today we are going to talk about how we are going to configure the direct internet access. So in order to understand the direct internet access, firstly we have to understand what is happening on the VH device. So right now on any of the VH devices, there are three VPNs that we are configuring. One is a VPN 0. The other one is a VPN 1. And the third one is VPN 512. So in all of these VPNs, they are having their own routes actually. In the case of a VPN 0, the routes that we are having is from the perspective of connectivity, connected interfaces. And in the case of a VPN 1, all of the routes, that is perspective of the user that should resides in this service VPN, in the perspective of DC1, and if also VPN 1 is configured over here, and the servers that are going to connect over here, so all of the routes, that's perspective of servers, will also reside in this VPN 1. And in the case of a VH1 side, the users that are going to connect in the VPN 1, those routes are also in this VPN 1 routing table. If I take a mesh topology, so what it will do, it will establish a tunnel with all of its sites by using the connectivity interface. So what is happening by default is that all of the traffic actually from this VPN 1 will go to this VPN 0 routing table, and it will travel through these tunnels, whatever is required. For example, if it has to go to the DC1, so it will travel with this tunnel. And in the case of if it has to go to the VH site 1, it will travel inside the tunnel. But by default, it is not using this ISP link directly, this VPN 1. So what if my users on this site wants to go to the Google? So by default, what is the mechanism? It has to go to any of its sites where the internet connectivity is there, and from that site, it is going to serve this Google service or any of the internet related service. I don't want to travel all the way to any of the data center or remote sites to go to the Google. What I want is I want to directly go to the Google. So in this way, what I will do, I will configure a data policy, a data traffic policy, through which I can define that you do not have to travel for a Google on any of the tunnel. You have to go directly or using this link to go to the Google. This is what a direct internet access is. And this thing will be achieved by configuring a traffic data policy. And so let's start. Let's see how we are going to configure those things. So in my case, it's a VS2 device on which I will configure a direct internet access. Currently, as you can see, there are two interfaces that are configured in VPN 0, right? So it means that we are having a two internet service provider, or we have two upstreams. Okay, show IP route. As you can see, I have two default routes in my VPN 0, which is actually an underlay routing table. Before going to explain these two routes, I would like to also share you the two things. It's like, so the routes that are going to learn from these ISPs. For example, in my case, I'm having two ISPs. So the routes of an ISP that are going to learn, these are actually my underlay routes. And if I am having learning any default routes in this routing table, those are called an overlay routing table. In order to see this underlay and overlay routes, let's start show RP routes. This is my VH site 2. Okay. So I am having two default routes in my underlay routing table, which is, you can see, it's in VPN 0. These are the two default routes. And I'm also learning one of the default routes in my service VPN as well. Okay. So by default, all of my traffic will follow this service VPN default route. In order to see this default route where it is actually learning, let me type show OMP routes 0.0.0. Okay, so as you can see, this default route is actually learning from a site ID 1, right? So all of my traffic is actually going to the site ID 1, all of my internet related traffic. Let me just give a trace over here as well. It's my directly connected interface. And yeah, 192.168.101. So 192.168.101.1 is actually a connected interface, a connectivity from a site ID1. Let me show it to you. Show OMP routes. Show IP. Let's go for show IP routes first. Okay, as you can see, 192.168.101/24 is actually learning in a service VPN route. So it's an overlay route. It's an OMP route. So in order to see the further details of that, show OMP routes 192.168.101.0/24. Okay, so this is a site ID1. This route is learning from the site ID1. So by default, for the case for internet, all of my traffic is actually going on a site ID1. What I want is that I do not want to go for the sake of internet. I do not want to go to site 1. What I want is like it should be directly accessible the internet from locally through this WAN edge device by using their underlay routing table. There are two policies actually. Over here, in order to manage kind of a routing, we had to use a control policy. But in order to manipulate any kind of traffic data, we have to use a data traffic policy, which in this we will allow or redirect any kind of traffic if we want, right? So so this direct internet access will be managed by this data traffic policy. So let's configure. Let me get to the policy section. Okay, so let's create a policy, add a policy, centralized policy. Okay, the first thing I'm defining some prefix list. It's RFC 1980. 192.168.0.0/16 10.0.0.0/8 172.16.0.0/12. It's service VPN. In my case, it's service VPN 1. And site is site ID 2. These are the prerequisites actually. I mean, these are the things I'm going to call while configuring the policy. That's I'm needing in later on. Okay. So the first thing we had to add a topology, which is like a control policy. In my case, I'm not focusing right now on a control policy. I'm using the existing policy, which is like a mesh topology. So it has created a it has created a tunnels. Let me show it to you. In all of the sites, so we have the sessions, site ID 1 and site ID 3. So let me do an import an existing topology, which in my case is the mesh topology. Right now, I'm not discussing a control policy. I will discuss the data traffic policy because I have to configure a direct internet access. So next, that's where I have to configure the direct internet access policy. This is a traffic data policy. Click on add policy, create new. Let's define a DIA data policy. Data policy. Now copy and paste into the description. Click on add. Let's do a custom. Okay. A sequence. Okay. Now over here, you have to choose these things. So let's, on first source data prefix, let's say, let me add new data prefix, RFC 1918 calling to 168.0.0/16 10.0.0.0/8 extra 172.16.0.0/12 save. Okay. The source setup prefix, and it is going to, when the private IP address that they are going to communicate to each other, what you will do, just do an accepting for the source setup prefix, destination setup prefix, then click over here, then select accept only. That's it. Save and match actions. Click on again a sequence rule. Now source data prefix will be my RFC 1918, and the destination data prefix is, I can mention specifically as 0.0.0/0. Click on this option, accept. Okay. Now there are some actions that I can define on this particular policy. In my case, I have to do a direct internet access. So I have to do a NAT VPN. And by default, it will choose NAT VPN ID. It's a 0. So this is actually a policy that will be applicable on my service VPNs, right? So from the service VPN, it has to translate. So wherever it is going to be translated, it has to be translated into the VPN ID 0, where the internet access is there. There's another option which is called a fallback. If underlay route is not working for the internet access, it will follow the overlay route. Currently, I'm not configuring a fallback. So let's save and match. Okay. Save data policy. Okay. Click on next. Now at this point, we have to apply the policy. For the sake of topology, we are using the existing mesh topology. We are not changing anything, so that's why it's not showing it over here. Let's go to the traffic data policy that we have created. Okay. This is a DIA policy. Okay, so where we have to apply the traffic data policy, this is where we can select that where we have to apply. So this data traffic policy will be applicable from a service VPN. So all of the traffic that is coming from a service VPN, the policy will be applicable into that direction. So this is the option that I have to select. On which site that I want to apply, currently I'm going to apply this data traffic policy on site 2. Okay, that's it. And after that, on which VPN that I have to apply, for example, in any of the case, for example, there could be more than service VPN that could have been configured on any of the VS device, for example, service VPN 1, service VPN 2, or any of that. So in my case, the service VPN that I'm using is service VPN 1. So this is the VPN that I'm going to apply this data traffic policy. Click on add. Okay. So over here, this data traffic policy will be applied. Then click on save policy. Okay, this is a centralized policy that I have created. Right now, this policy has not been applied yet, right? We can verify it from here as well. On the VH side 2, let's see, show policy from vSmart. There's no policy yet that has been applied on this side. So in order to apply this policy, or in order to be functional this policy, we have to activate this policy. Let's click on these 3 dots and then click on activate. So it will push this policy onto the vSmart, and vSmart will push all the policy to all of their VS devices. The policy push is in progress. Okay, policy has been pushed successfully. Let me go to my VS device. Again, have show policy from vSmart. Okay. As you can see, the policy has been successfully pushed onto this VS device, right? Now, in this case, let me go to my host and do a trace route. It will go to my direct interface, but from this point, it's not reachable. The thing which we have configured is that we just, in the policy, we define that you should translate or you should do a NAT in the VPN 0. In the VPN 0, there are multiple interfaces. So around VPN 0, in my case, there are 2 interfaces. So from which interface do I want it to go? Or I want it to go from the both interfaces. This is a thing we had to define. And how I can define this thing? By configuring a NAT command onto the interface level. For example, I wanted to use this interface for the sake of direct internet access. So I have to configure a NAT command under this interface. As I showed you earlier, that these VS devices is managing by the vManage. So all of the configurational chain has to be managed by the vManage. So let's go to the vManage. The device templates. Now I have to configure the device configuration. So for this, we have to go to device template, then go to the feature set because I have to configure a particular interface, right? So that's why I will go into the feature template and go to the specific feature set in which I have configured interface. In my case, VS Dual WAN linked to ISP1. This is the feature template that is actually I have configured for this particular VS devices. Okay, click on edit. How do I know? Well, that's a separate case. Well, you do configuration, you will get to know about it. But right now, I know that this is the feature template that I have configured for this VNS device. So let's click on edit. Right now, as you can see, there is no NAT configuration under this interface. Click on NAT tab. So I have to configure the NAT for this interface. It's global, on, and block ICMP, no, off. Let me do it global, off. Respond to ping, global, on. As you can see from the interface name, I am using GE0-0. So click on update. Okay, this feature template is actually used by the 2 VS devices. So the configuration chain will be applicable to the 2 of the VS devices. Next. So currently I'm focusing on VS side 2. So for VS 3, I don't care. Let's do for configure device. Yeah, it's exact. Let me go back to my VS device. Show run VPN 0. Yeah. Now you can see there's a NAT command under this interface. So all of my traffic, for the sake of our internet, it will go directly by using this service provider. Let me go back to my host 2. Let me do a trace route now. Interface. Yes. Now you can see that my traffic is using my WAN ISP link. I hope this video is useful for you. Do like this video and subscribe to my channel and also share this content. Thank you so much. Bye.